Today I want to talk to you about music theory for drummers. It's a great tool to have and helps you with structures of songs, helps you get on with your playing, and it's just something that drummers should know really. So I'm just talking about the very basics of it. This is all stuff that's in my book one. I've gone into a little bit more detail here. I'm Alex Biggs, this is Drum Bass Studios. Let's get into it. Music is written on manuscript paper, and all that is paper that's got 5 lines and 4 spaces in between, and that is called a stave or staff. If you're in the UK, it's a stave. America call it a staff. So if we have a little look at it, as I say, you can see the 5 parallel lines, and then what you can do then is you normally put a clef with it of a bass or a treble, so you can write the music for keys and flats, but as drummers we don't need any of that. So what we have adopted is a neutral clef. Again, you don't really need to worry about it, but if you're wondering what those 2 little lines are, it's just a neutral clef. So we've got here a quarter note. I'll go through all the note values if you don't know what that is shortly, but that basically is your beat. So it's saying there's 76 beats per minute and the beat is quarter note. Sometimes when you have a different time signature, it could be a dotted note. But again, because this is basic stuff, don't worry about it. This is just your beats per minute that the music is, the tempo, so how fast it goes. The time signature is important. That tells you how many beats are in a bar. So 4/4 would mean 4 beats. The top number, that tells you that there is 4 of something. The bottom number tells you the type of beat. So if it's 4, it's quarter note. If it's 8, it's eighth notes. Most of the stuff that you'll do as a beginner will be in 4/4 because 95% of music is in 4/4, popular music. And then you might come across 3/4. That's just 3 quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And again, if you're sometimes looking at other styles, you might end up with 6/8, which is 6 eighth note beats. But because it's what's called a compound time signature, again, don't get bogged down by this. It just means it has a pulse of 2, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll go through all the note values so you can understand that in a bit anyway. But basically, it's mainly 4/4, but you might come across 6/8 or 3/4 when you're starting out. But again, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I'll go into depth in time signatures in another episode or video, but all you need to sort of just keep an eye on it, and 4/4 is probably what you're going to come across. Then we're looking at the bar lines. So if you put down these bar lines, they basically divide the stave or staff into bars. And again, in America, they call them measures, but we call them bars in the UK. A double bar line indicates something's happening. It could be a change of key for the music. It could be we're going from hi-hat to ride, or there could be something going on. So when you see a double bar line, it just means there's a change, like verse or chorus in a song. A thick bar line with a thin one is basically the end. That's it, finished. You'll see that at the end of your piece or the exercise. Repeat markings have the 2 dots in front of it, and that just means repeat that section. It might have a little ×2, so that means you do that more than once. You repeat it more than once. It really depends, but just means it repeats. Now the left one, if it's not there, it means you go back to the beginning. So if that's missing the left repeat marking, you just go back to the beginning. Otherwise, just repeat between the section. If you're repeating the previous bar, so you've got to do the same again, you'll get this, and that just means exactly that. On the next page, you can see you've got a double bar repeat, which means repeat the previous 2, not the previous one twice. Pick those 2 bars up and slot them in, and that is what that stands for. Basically, a long arrow is a crescendo. Now it could be a few notes, it could be a bar, it could be like here, a few bars. It just means gradually get louder. Sometimes it'll have dynamic markings, which I'll mention in a minute, either end, so you have a specific volume to go to. If it's going quieter, that would be the other way round, and it's normally DIM dot, which is short for diminuendo, which means gradually get quieter. If you've got a lot of bars that you're going to be resting, it's easier to write it like this and then put the amount of bars above. So this is a 24 bar rest. An accent is basically a little arrow. You normally find them above crashes, so you hit the crash slightly harder. And back to the dynamics. So dynamics are volume, so quiet, loud, you know, they are the fundamentals of volume dynamics. P means piano, which is confusing. Why it's an instrument, I don't know, but that means it's quiet or soft. So if you see P, play quietly or soft. If you see F, it's loud, and that means forte, and these are Italian words, so forte is loud. Now what you do see a lot of is M. M is moderately, it's pronounced mezzo, so you'd have MP, which is mezzo piano, which is moderately quiet, and you'd have MF, which is moderately loud, mezzo forte. Now, how loud is loud? Well, the way I gauge it is that when I'm playing and I'm nice and relaxed, just playing a groove or whatever, that is my moderately loud. If I'm pushing a little bit or hitting a bit harder, that's loud. I'm really slogging it, it's very loud. That'll be double F. And then if I want to be quiet, I'll just be careful how I'm hitting, and that would be your moderately quiet. And then annoyingly playing soft is quiet. And again, if you want to aggravate a drummer, tell them play slowly and quietly. That always works. We'll go through the note values. We used to call them sort of semi-breve and minims. They still do in the classical or kind of piano language, but as drummers we go towards the more American way, which makes a lot more sense, and that's because we want to add things up as drummers, so it just makes more sense to call them what they are, as in whole, halves and quarters. So it's much easier than minims, because minim doesn't mean anything, where as a half of something you know exactly what that is. So the whole note would mean another instrument would hold the note for 4 beats, so that is why it's a whole note. The whole note rest is hanging from the line, and I've got a little thing to tell you in a minute about how to remember that. If you played another instrument, you'd literally, piano, we'd hold that note all the way for the whole 4 beats. As drummers, we don't generally hold notes, but we do if we're doing a drum roll or a cymbal roll out where you go shh on the cymbals. That would be where I see whole notes written. Half notes, basically exactly what it is. You cut the whole in half and you have 2 half notes, and again that's now worth 2 beats. And then the rest is why I was going to say I always think hanging for longer, sitting for less, because they look so close, it's confusing. So if you're hanging, it's longer, it's the whole note. Sitting is less, the half note. Half notes I don't often see in drumming either. They kind of come in on the sight reading where you've got to play a load of snare drum exercises. You might find them there, but generally you don't see a lot of half notes in drum notation. Quarter notes, very common. These are your beats. So they used to be called crotchets. Again, we're going to quarter notes. That makes a lot more sense to me. And then there's a little rest, which is a squiggle. These are your 4 beats in the bar. Next we have 8th note, and again there's 8 in a bar. In the UK we kind of break them into 2 lots of 4. An 8th note has either a link bar across it or a tail, one tail. That's how you know it's an 8th note. You can see here what it looks like with a tail. The 16th notes have 2 link bars and they're grouped into beats, so you can tell what they are and it's easier to read. The tails, you have 2 little lines or 2 tails for the 16th note. There are more notes, but we're just doing the real basics, and these are all the notes and things you'll find in my book 1. What you have is a count of 1 eander. How you count them 1 eander is because it's quicker than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's easier to count 1 eander, 2 eander. So that's how you count them, and try and learn the counts. Again, the 8th notes are 1 and 2 and they really help with speeding up the process. And again, the 16th note rest has got 2 tails. So that's basically it. Real basic stuff, but do try and learn it. What I do is, for an example, is if somebody said to me, I'm going to give you 20 names, can you remember them? I won't be able to do that. But if they wrote the 20 names down and gave me the sheet of paper, I could remember it. And that's how I kind of think of drum music, as someone's giving you it for you to remember. You don't have to read it all perfectly. You can get an idea, but it does help to know the theory behind it. I'm Alex Biggs. This is Drum Bass Studios. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.